So, good mail day. That's all I'm going to say. Welcome back to my, what did I call this? A dungeon, I think. I've added one decoration. Yeah, he was here actually a while ago. If you were listening to the podcast at all, which by the way, if you're here because you saw the title, whatever, and you're like, what podcast? Growing Up Punk is the name of the podcast. We talk about punk rock and all of its friends. And so this little YouTube channel that we've got going on here is mainly just to talk about, other things, whether it's reviewing new music, which I've done a grand total of one time so far, or in this case, to talk about things I received in the mail. So today, this guy came in the mail. I don't know if this is... I should probably do more research on this stuff before I, upload videos and what have you, but I decided just to get in and do this. But we're going to talk about this. So, it's... If you know what it is, you know what it is. It's Dashboard Confessionals, the places you have come to fear the most, on vinyl. And I don't know if this is the first pressing or not. I definitely never owned it on vinyl. I don't even know if I've really looked for it on vinyl, but I saw, I think it was on Twitter or Instagram, Chris Caraba, Dashboard Confessional, they had shared a link saying, hey, get your orders in. This is here. And then literally the day that this came, so today, I picked this up in the mail today, and I got an email from Dashboard Confessional saying, hey, by the way, Swiss Army Romance is going to be on vinyl as well. So they're just trying to take all my money, I guess. But I thought we could kind of take a look at this pressing, and then also, talk a little bit about the record, the album itself, because if you're like me, it played a pretty big role. So first, it's pretty sweet, right? You're familiar with the album. It's got, the electric race car, remote, I guess you could say. It is what it is. The artwork, I feel, is very much like Vagrant Records of the early 2000s. Just looking at this, that's clearly what it was and what it is. Inside, you got, the lyrics, the pictures. It's basically, I remember, from the CD, these were the pictures that were in the CD book. And then I went with, I think there were different colors. I just went with the black. I typically go with, if I have a choice for whatever reason, I typically go with the black pressing. I don't know, maybe because, a little bit's because I just like the look. I feel like it's more classic, the black pressings. I don't know. But this record, The Places You Have Come to Fear the Most by Dashboard Confessional, it's one that I can actually distinctly remember getting it. I don't remember when I first heard Dashboard, if it was on a compilation or I just heard someone talk about it or whatever, but I can remember specifically buying this CD and my first experience listening to it. So I would have been, I think, probably 16 at the time, and I didn't have my driver's license, and I grew up in a small town that didn't have, any music stores, anything like that. So I had to get a ride from my parents into the city. So I grew up just outside Calgary, so I had to get a ride into Calgary, and I can remember going to the mall and picking this CD up from HMV, which it was just, it's not around anymore here in Canada. It was a record store, it is what it is. It was kind of like especially at that time, out here, it was the main one. You had HMV and you had A&B Sound were the two big ones out west in Canada anyways. I can't speak for the rest of Canada. I'm sure they had different stores as well. But anyway, I went and bought it, and then my parents had to go into a different store, and I said, I'm just gonna wait in the car. I wanna listen to this. So I put it on, and I sat there and I listened to The Places You Have Come to Fear the Most for the very first time. And I can just remember sitting there going, this is unbelievable, because up until that point, it was in the punk scene, in the hardcore scene, whatever, no one was doing that, right? Just the acoustic, straightforward, singing your guts out sort of thing like Dashboard Confessional was doing. And so sitting there listening to this, I just went, I was for sure one of those people who was every little line, I'm like, yeah, I totally relate to this, man. Every single bit of it is right in the heart. Which is, a typical, I think, teenager, overly dramatic reaction, maybe. I wasn't sitting in the car crying by any means, but I was for sure gonna live my life by the lyrics of this album for the remainder of high school. There was no doubt about it. So when I got into collecting vinyl, I first got into collecting vinyl because my grandfather gave me his old turntable and a couple old records. Now those old records were just jazz records, and so when I first got into it, I was like, I'm just gonna buy or like look for old stuff. New stuff, I don't want to hear that on vinyl. That's not for me, right? And then eventually I just started going, you know, the things I want to own, especially now that we live in a world where streaming is really a thing, the things that I want to own, I want to buy on vinyl. That's sort of what it became, and then it became a thing where I wanted to get some of my favorite records from when I was growing up, because when I was growing up, you know, those high school years, I'm pretty sure, I haven't ran the numbers, but I'm pretty sure that's when vinyl was like at its lowest as far as sales and production was concerned. So there were a lot of records that I loved that never had an original pressing, which is also an okay thing. Like I said, I haven't looked up to see if this had an original pressing or not. But you know, when I'm the kind of guy, I'm like, if records get repressed, I'm all about it. I know there are people who would say, no, you got to have that original pressing sort of thing. And I'm kind of the person where I go, if it's repressed, I'm okay with it. You know why? Because it's probably going to cost me less to get it. And I mean, the big thing I love about records in general, I'm not gonna sit here and argue about whether or not, you know, records sound better than digital or CD or even cassette these days. It gets brought up a lot, but because that all also depends on so many variables, right? Like, it's going to depend on your setup that you have at home. It's going to depend on the pressing itself. Like, there are so many variables into whether or not actually owning something on vinyl is going to sound better than just listening to it on the internet or what have you. So we're not here for that. The whole reason I really, and I know there are a lot of people like this, that I really love getting into vinyl, is because to hold something in your hand and to be able to like look at this artwork and say, you know, like really get into it, I think is pretty awesome. And you know, there's obviously something about putting a record on and playing it too. I'm not here to talk about that. I just wanted to share that I got it in the mail, and to talk about The Places You Have Come to Fear the Most by Dashboard Confessional, because for me, they were a band that I immediately latched onto, and they had some records from my youth that were, you know, unbelievable, so good, that were like records I'd take with me to this day. So I was thinking about this earlier, and I was like, I think Chris Carrabba might actually be the vocalist I have on the most records in my collection, because this marks Dashboard Confessional record number 2 that I have in my collection, because I do have a pressing of A Mark, a Mission, a Brand, a Scar. I also have both the Further Seems Forever records that he was on, as well as Twin Forks, because his voice, man, if you're a fan of Dashboard Confessional, there's a good chance you're a fan of Chris's voice. That's just the way it goes. So yeah, anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you, talk a little bit about the record, and I was pumped to get it in the mail. So anyway, don't forget, you can go check out the podcast. You can find Growing Up Punk wherever you find podcasts. Follow us on our social medias. Maybe you're watching this on IGTV. I don't know. If you're on YouTube, though, you can find us on Instagram, on Twitter, at Growing Punk Pod. If you want to see more posts about like my record collection, I post some vinyl, a fair bit of vinyl on my personal Instagram, which you'll find on our podcast Instagram as well. It's all linked there. So yeah, share the video. Let me know. Are you a fan of this record? Do you buy vinyl? All those good things. Let me know. All right. Bye-bye.